So good morning again, everyone. I had a couple questions come in about cultivating the bandhas, and this past week in our Thursday morning class, we used an inversion practice to help with that. And I had a question about that, so I want to try to respond. In the physical practice, there'll be some places where you might choose to do what I call the scenic turnout, which is where you are having the experience that's meant to be yours and you're satisfied, and going further at that moment may not be your yoga. So you have a scenic turnout. You take in the scenery of the experience that you're having. So it's a way of saying not all poses are for everyone. And sometimes your best yoga is happening in the pose that precedes the pose that somebody else might be working on. Since we're going to work with an inversion, this is a really important understanding to have about yourself. So let's take a time to sit together, please, to sit in quiet and come together. And then we will dive into our practice. So rest your hands in your lap. You're welcome to close your eyes. And remind yourself that you're here for a yoga practice, which is both for personal renewal and discovery, and also a journey of understanding human nature. So you're not actually here to attack or acquire yoga poses. And so as you're here for renewal and discovery and understanding, allow your body to arrive here and for your breath to be like a chaperone to help keep you here in your practice. So when you sense the breath coming and going this morning, place some attention on as the air enters the nose and it touches the upper back of the throat, the upper part of the sinuses. Just notice its delicate movement through that spot, and invite yourself to also be aware of the temperature, which is different between inhale and exhale. And remind yourself that choosing a place to rest your attention is the practice of attention and concentration. It's not that the thing we choose needs to be necessarily mystical or esoteric or promoted in a certain way in our minds. It's that paying attention and noticing the subtle. It's a way of tuning in not only to your own nature, but to the nature of life. So as you're noticing the air passing through that place in the back of the sinuses there, in the back of the throat, start noticing the absence of movement when you're at the inhale pause or the exhale pause, that there won't be the sense of air moving across that space. Let's practice for the next 5 or 6 breath cycles, just this, the art of paying attention. The practice itself is reflecting you and your capacity today back to you. And it's also raising your capacity. Now please join your hands together at your heart. Come to Anjali Mudra. So when we're chanting, you'll have just a brief inhale between the lines of the chant, and then you'll have the exhale. And you won't have as much access to noticing the air at the upper back part of the throat or the sinuses. But you can bring your attention then to the shape of the throat and the vibration that you're making and how vibration comes through your body. We'll chant the Gayatri mantra. Let's begin. Om Bhurva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimoi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Bhurva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimoi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Bhurva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimoi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. And with your exhale, you may bow your head to your heart. And release your hands. Please open your eyes. So to begin opening into these bandhas, there are 3 primary bandhas in yoga. Mula bandha, which is at the base of the pelvis. Uddiyana bandha, which is in the abdomen. And Jalandhar bandha, which is in the throat. To support access to this, it's really helpful if we're not carrying a lot of abdominal tension. And we tend to have abdominal tension when we feel uneasy or stressed or depleted, or we're overactive or we're underactive, all the ways in which our systems can go out of balance. So I'd actually like us to start with the chair. I'm going to take my seat back on my mat with the chair, and I'm going to ask you to sit on the front edge of your chair. Let me just get my proper camera here. There we go. So sit on the front edge of the chair. You can have 2 blocks close by because some of you will need those blocks to make this more comfortable. And when you sit on the front edge of the chair, sit so that your feet are flat on the floor. And let's say for right now, they can be hip distance apart. And then reach back to hold the sides of the chair with both hands. Roll your shoulders back. Go ahead and bend your elbows, especially if you have longer arms, with this little bend in the elbow, so that you can take the shoulders back, elbows back, and bring your shoulder blades in to the back of your heart. Let's bring the chin down to start. And raise your rib cage up a little bit like a hot air balloon. So I'm holding about halfway up the leg of my chair because that lets me, with shorter arms, it gives me the dynamics that I can bend my elbows and lift the rib cage. And I want you to lift the rib cage up so that you could sense kind of an alleviation of the pressure of the upper torso down on your diaphragm and your organs and your pelvis. Let yourself breathe smoothly, in through your nose, out through your nose. It's a great time to go back and notice in the upper part of the throat, in the back of your sinus cavities there. What is the breath when it's moving? And what is the breath like when it's still? Now start to slowly raise your chin, open your throat, roll the shoulders back a little bit more. And keeping the elbows and the shoulders squeezed back, take one more breath cycle in. And then exhale, release your head to level, release your arms, let them dangle for a moment. Now, depending on the kind of chair you have back there, I hope there's an opening between the leg of the chair and some sort of space. Even if you have slats on your chair, that there's a little opening. I'm going to ask you now to reach back and put your hand, so your palm faces out like this. So you're going to put the palm against the inside legs of the chair. You might need to have your thumbs with your fingers. You might need to have your thumbs separate from your fingers. My thumbs are sticking out right now so you can see what that looks like. Okay, and then again, roll your shoulders back. This time you have straight elbows. And use the chair and the dynamics of the chair to help you. I want you to squeeze the shoulders back, shoulder blades up into the upper back, and bring your chin down towards your throat. When you're lifting the rib cage, it's not only on the front side, but also on the back side. And that lift is something you can create internally, not only the external support structure, but also internally. Now keeping your arms where they are, let's inhale, raise up and open the throat, please. You can also not just raise your head, but lift your chin. And then bring your head back to level, and once more, relax both arms. I'll do one more position here before we check out the pranayama, where you have these suspensions, and some of you are asking, how do you get the suspension into the interior of the ribs? So for this next one, please turn to the right side of your chair. So you're going to turn and actually face to your right. When you're facing right here, sit up straight through the pelvis so you're neither arching nor rounding the lower spine. Rotate to your right and look over your right shoulder. And notice the breath coming in to make contact with the back of the throat again. You may also be able to notice the breath coming down into the pelvic basin and causing first a widening, and then let that widening come up concentrically through your whole torso. Include the back of the heart, the back of your diaphragm, the back of your waist. And then let's exhale, rotate around to face towards your knees. Now, based on the chair that you're sitting on, you're going to scoot a little bit towards the edge of the chair so that for a few moments, really only your right hip is going to be on the chair. And then take the left leg and step it down to be a quad stretch right here, which is going to turn into the possibility of a hip flexor stretch as you scoot the toes back and slowly work on straightening for your left leg. Now, it might not get completely straight. Maybe you're not warmed up yet. Maybe the hip flexors are shortened all day when you're working at your desk. So as you're reaching back like this, go slowly where the pelvis can stay upright. So the moment that you feel like your thigh or your hip flexor is going to ask you to tip your lumbar spine forward, I'm asking you to resist going past that spot. That would be your scenic turnout. To pause right there. And if you feel like you really have to fight to keep the pelvis upright, then your knee is likely going to be a little bit more bent. Now while you're here, take the left hand and place it on the lower back up towards your kidneys and your rib cage. And roll the left shoulder back, the left elbow back. Press your left hand down as you lift the inner body up. And then you can exhale, release your left arm, release the left leg, and then turn to center on your chair. Notice how things are left to right in your body. Turn to go to the other side, so facing to your left on your chair. Sit up straight and tall so the pelvis is supported and upright. And rotate to your left. And gaze over your left shoulder. And invite the breath again to be three-dimensional. Sometimes I like to say circumferential, concentric, so it includes the entirety of the torso. Yeah. You can concentrate on feeling the breath passing through the upper part of your throat, also observing that it's going to expand lower, middle, and upper portions of the torso. And then as you exhale, rotate around to face towards your knees. And again, you're going to scooch to the side of the chair so that you're going to mostly have your left thigh and your left hip on the chair, and bring the right knee down. So you might have two different hips. So you're going to start with awareness of the pelvis being upright. And then as you start taking the right leg back, you're really asking, okay, can I lengthen the psoas? Can I open the hip flexors, but without disturbing or distorting the pelvic basin or your lumbar spine? And again, you may have two different sides. So you might also be stretching into your toes right now, which is something that I'm experiencing, my big toe. But my primary interest is at the core of the pelvis here. setu. Let's take the right hand and place it so that you've got your fingers maybe pointing up towards the rib cage there. Pull down with your right hand, roll your right shoulder up and back. So you're still lifting the torso internally, and you can make a little back bend of that. Remember that in this particular kind of back bend, it's not that we're crunching the lower back, we aren't shortening it, it's that we're going up and then back. And release your right arm and your right leg. And rotate back to face forward. And place your feet flat on the floor and take notice. Okay. What's the quality of the mind or the mood? And we'll do just a little bit of pranayama to go into the suspension and see if anything feels different than it would in your other practices so far. Have we addressed some of the tightness that would be in here that now it can respond more easily? So Vastrika is a strong exhale out the mouth, repeated several times like a flutter. And then we'll inhale to suspend, and then we'll exhale and relax. So let's begin. Okay, inhale up to suspension. During suspension, you lift the heart, brighten the chest, snug the low belly in and up. The chin slightly down and in. So all three bandhas are there. And then you're going to release the bandhas and exhale smoothly out through your nose. Pause a moment just to relax right there. Now we'll do Kapalabhati. Excuse me. So it'll be a little bit faster pace and it goes out through both nostrils. And this one will have 3 inhale suspensions at the top because we're going to go into Nadi Shodhana to do it. Okay, let's begin. Exhale. Inhale both nostrils here. Suspend. Exhale left side only. Inhale left. Excuse me, inhale left. And then suspend again at the top. Close the left, exhale right. Inhale right. And exhale left. Release your right hand down. Now, based on how tall you are and the dimensions of your chair, you're going to have to raise up. So you might need a couple of blocks to sit on so that you're going to make your seat higher. And this is based on if you know that when you reach back, you're going to interlace the fingers. And I'm going to ask you to take your hands over the upper back of the chair that's behind you. So my hands can't be seen right now because they're on this chair. Let me go this way so maybe you can see that they're on the, how do I show you? Yeah, they're on the top of the chair right back there. And that's because I have the shoulder flexibility, but also the height of the upper back of my chair relative to the height of my torso and my shoulders. So please sit up on something if you need to. Don't deny it. And then gently you press the hands down against the chair to raise the inner body up. Set your shoulders back. And bring the chin slightly down and mostly in towards the center of your throat. And let's practice going up to the inhale suspension, please. And then exhale slowly from the base of your belly. You're releasing the exhale as completely as you can. At the end of that exhale, squeeze and tone the abdominal muscles, and then really smoothly inhale. Suspend. Begin exhaling from the lower belly. You're looking to consistently increase the tone of your exhale muscles. At the end of that tone, when you've squeezed completely, then inhale really smoothly. And then exhale last time. Notice the tone at the end of the exhale. This time at the bottom of your exhale, release your arms down, rest your palms face up in your lap. Notice any access you might have to some mental stillness there. And we're going to stay with this kind of thoughtful practice, a strategic practice this morning. So I'm going to ask you to use your chair now for the sun salutation. So when you come up to stand, I'm going to put my chair on the front of my mat. So you're going to see the back of my chair. You can place yours how you need to. So this process is one where instead of using the floor, we're going to use the chair because I want to accentuate the duration of some poses and the articulation of the pelvis in other poses. So you'll place your hands on the seat of the chair, and let's put the hands so that they're going to be sideways on the chair seat. So like your thumb may be on the chair seat and the fingers can wrap around. That's going to give you the chance to rotate your arm so that the tricep comes in towards the nose, and we can broaden the upper back and the heart. And that's another place that we haven't really been aware as, just average citizens. We may not have been aware of where the breath can go back there. So you're going to place your hands on the chair seat, and then my chair seat squeeze. Sorry about that. Step back to downward dog pose, please. And the hands sideways. As you lengthen back through your sitting bones, you can press against the chair, but remind yourself that the chair is not fixed to something, so you're not pushing it like a grocery cart right now. And see to what extent you can broaden the inhale into the back of your body, including the back of your heart and the space between your shoulder blades. So the spine is not hanging down like a hammock right now. And notice again how we were just doing with the hands over the upper back of the chair. Let's practice inhale with only a brief suspension at the top. More importantly, practice how you exhale and you tone the low belly really completely but smoothly. And you make a very smooth transition into the next inhale. And that transition at the bottom of your exhale, at the beginning of your inhale, is really key to how you're going to be learning what we do during exhale suspension. So now turn your left heel slightly in and step your right foot forward towards the toes of the chair. So that's a little bit like the base of a pose you would call Virabhadrasana 1. Let's keep the fingertips on the chair and come up to your fingertips. Okay, press back into your left heel against the floor. And as you encourage your hips to come forward, you might have a calf stretch, left calf stretch. But as you encourage your hips to come forward, keep reaching back with your upper inner left thigh. Bring the tailbone forward. It's as if those two places in the pelvis they're passing each other. So the upper inner left thigh does move back, and you can encourage the tailbone and even the pubic bone to come forward. And keep your left heel anchored. And keep your attention right there at the upper inner left thigh, pelvic floor, tailbone. And walk your hands up to your front knee and then to your hips. And as you're raising your pelvis up, keep your awareness at the pelvic floor. And notice what happens when your exhale becomes more and more toned at the pelvic floor, and how that tone then becomes the beginning of the inhale. Let's place the two hands on the hips and actually press down against your pelvis. Lift the inner body up, so again, you're not burdening the pelvis with the weight of the upper torso. This really refined attention requires a subtlety of mind and also creates it. Take the upper inner left thigh back and the tailbone down, pubic bones coming slightly up. And be really committed to how you finish your exhale, how you begin your inhale. Do that twice more, please. And then when you next exhale, just begin going really slowly towards the chair. I want you to sense the transition that your body does. It navigates what happens to the pelvic floor, And when you sense you're about to pick up your right foot, what does the upper inner left thigh do? We hope your left inner thigh is going to support you when you step backwards. Let's step back to plank pose. And then reach your hips high. Take the inner thighs back as you come into downward facing dog pose with your chair. Stay for at least one thoughtful exhale. Notice the transition from exhale into your inhale. Then turn your right heel in slightly and step your left foot forward between the toes of the chair. And put your attention beginning at the upper inner right thigh. Come up to your fingertips to start this pose. And as the upper inner right thigh goes back, remind yourself the tailbone is going to come slightly down and forward. It's like they're passing each other. Lift the pubic bones, please. Yes, you have two pubic bones, and they meet in the center, and we've been calling it a pubic bone for a long time, but it's plural. And then walk your hands to your left knee. And then as you walk your hands back to your hips, press down against the hip bones and notice the pressure downward is an invitation for the torso to go inward and upward. And listen with that subtle attention that you're cultivating. What happens as you get to the end of your exhale? How do you transition into your inhale? And no sense of grasping. So when you're exhaling and you're toning and toning the belly, don't make it last so long that you become breathless and you feel like the next inhale you have to kind of gasp or rouse. So that for 2 more breath cycles, finding your way through the breath to the subtle quality of mind. And now notice what your pelvic floor starts to do as you slide your hands over the front knee, even as you reach for the chair. The pelvic floor anticipates these movements. So do your multifidi muscles and your transverse abdominis. Now imagine you're going to step back to plank and notice what your right upper inner thigh does. And then step your left foot back to meet your right foot in plank pose. Reach your hips back to downward facing dog pose. And again, observe the exhale becoming an inhale. And then come forward, and as you're supporting yourself in a kind of plank pose, keep your arms steady and strong, and really slowly touch your knees down. And then you can sit back to kneeling for a few moments. When you go back to kneeling, it's okay to reach for a block to put under your hips. If you don't need one, you don't have to reach for it, but just come to pause like a short-sized mountain pose. And notice what's happening with the quality of your mind. So for some of you now, based on how tall you are, the height of your chair, and the flexibility of your inner thighs, you might want a couple blocks to put on your chair seat. My height and so on doesn't generally require that, but you can put them on the chair seat for your hands. Okay, we're going to be looking at a variation on triangle pose. So if you'll take the hands to the chair seat again, hopefully you're still in the same place more or less, and you can just lift into plank pose. But to do that, tuck your toes under, put your mind at the inner thighs and the tailbone, and then as you press down, lift up. Lift your inner thighs to go up to plank. And then reach back to downward facing dog pose. Take a look to the right side and the left side of your chair, and then step your right foot to the outside edge of your chair. So it's going to be wider, and then turn your left foot so it's kind of in the center of your mat. So that's a wider stance. Place your right hand firmly on the chair and start gliding your left hip back. Lengthen your right leg, reach into your right inner thigh, into your right big toe. And rotate your chest and your heart to the left. For this practice, because we're going to keep focusing on the pelvis, take your left hand to your left hip bone, the top part of the hip, and press down towards your left heel. And lengthen from your right inner thigh to your right big toe. And really take special notice of what is happening with the breath when you come to that exhale that's going to become an inhale. You might be starting to notice that when you tone the exhale and the low belly muscles are going through that process, the right inner thigh stretches a little bit more. You might be noticing something like that even. Because everything in the body is tied together. So now let's raise the left arm, please, and sweep your left arm past your left ear. Bring your attention now not at the pelvic floor. Of course, you can still respect that, but let's come up to the mid-torso and the diaphragm. That's where the second bandha happens. So pay attention to how the exhale becomes the inhale. And what role does your left upper inner belly have? So up under your left rib cage. It's particularly elegant when we exhale and then inhale slowly. As you can sense what has to happen in the upper left quadrant of the belly, right near the rib cage, for that to occur. I'm going to ask you to bring your left hand down to the chair seat and bend your right knee, please. And then check again with your left inner thigh. You're about to pick up the right foot and step it backwards. Is the left inner thigh ready? And then go back to your downward dog pose, please. And then you're going to step your left foot forward to the outside edge of the chair. And when you place it to the outer edge, go ahead and put blocks on the seat if you need to. You might have the foot just slightly pointing out. Mine tends to go on a diagonal right there. And the toe of the chair is right near my left inner arch. Let's place the right hand on the right hip and turn to triangle pose, just the base of triangle pose right now. You put your attention back down in the pelvis. We're going to stay curious. What happens when the exhale tone becomes the inhale? And you may start noticing that when you do tone the low belly, there's a feeling of greater opening for the upper inner left thigh. By the way, when you're feeling the inner thigh muscles, that might be an indication also about how your meditation state is either more long-lasting or a little bit shorter. Depends on so many factors, but the inner thighs are a part of your meditation state, being comfortable. And sweep your right arm past your right ear. Bring awareness to the upper right quadrant of the belly, the inner belly. And just about 3 breath cycles, notice how the exhale becomes the inhale. And because you're taking your time there, when the inhale begins, it's not that the left or right upper belly expand right away. It's a different process. So now you can bend your left knee, reach your right hand back towards the chair seat, put your mind on the right upper inner thigh, and step backwards to your plank pose. Yeah. And then use your plank pose to come down to your knees. Yeah. And one more time, we're just going to go back to kneeling. So if you want to use a block for that purpose, please feel free to do so. Yeah. And just get connected to what's happening inside. And for all the effort you made in breathing right now, you don't have to focus on the breath. Let it just take care of you. And then let's just try this once while you're kneeling there. You can keep your eyes closed and your body and mind quiet. Let's see what happens now if you do this like it's a 4 breath cycle repetition, one time through. So inhale up to a momentary suspension. In that suspension, do lift the inner belly in and up, and do tone the throat. Then exhale and tone the belly. And just be really thoughtful about the turning into the inhale. And we'll do that for 4 breath cycles. Now take your time. Each of you is going to have your own rhythm. That's okay. Each of you needs to have your own rhythm. Yeah, so one more time. And what's happening each time you do that is you're also massaging the inner belly. When you complete, then just take notice, what does the mind feel like? What is the inner experience like? You might be touching that horizon that is your meditation. Okay, so over the last several weeks, thank you, you can listen with your eyes closed. Over the last several weeks, we have been working on how the exhale goes to what I'm calling a passive suction moment. And when we exhale, 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 and we're keeping that tone, and then without inhaling, we release the tone, there's a passive suction that goes on in the inner body. And that passive suction is the first hint that you have of what Uddiyana Bandha becomes. Okay, so I want us to practice that now. And some of us have been doing it with a block to come down to. So when you set yourself up, what you can do is, so some of you are sitting, kneeling right now. Let's go to cross-legged for those who prefer cross-legged. And then to kneeling for those who prefer kneeling. Yeah. And the chair won't be necessary, so you can scoot that out of the way. And what you are going to be using is, the chair is going to come back on screen in a little bit, so I'll just turn it. You're going to be coming down to the support you need for your head. So let me describe, and I'm going to be watching you because everyone's rhythm is their own. If you're kneeling, you're going to have 2 fists that go in the belly. And then when you're bowing forward, you complete the exhale and the head touches the block. If you're sitting cross-legged, the hands are going to go at the small of your back. And when you come down, you'll also want support through your head. Okay, so set up for that. And I won't be going down with you, but I'll be watching. And everyone's going to have their own rhythm. So for those who are kneeling, go ahead and place your hands like this. And then for those sitting cross-legged, hands behind the back. Okay, and then Inhale while you're upright. And exhale, come slowly down. You are going to time the exhale for when your head reaches the block. So those things are synchronized. You squeeze the belly completely, and then without inhaling, radically relax the belly and your mind. And you only hold that suspension out, that little suction, as long as you're comfortable and not breathless. And then you're going to inhale to rise back up from there. And you momentarily pause if you need to before you do the next round, or you can go consecutively. So this practice might be a 1 breath cycle practice for you with a little pause, or it might be 3 or 4 consecutively in a row. And so take your time during that exhale suspension. It's not something to rush or to be thoughtless about. And when you complete the next one, then you can rise up to sit. So each of you is at your own timing when you come up to sit. Just go ahead and pause all breathing activity and let yourself feel. Let yourself just sense and feel what is happening in there, in the mind, in the inner body, in the central channel. Now we're going to come down onto the stomach, and we're going to be working with the chest and the throat, which is the next bandha. So when you come down to lying down, I won't be able to see you that well, so where you lie down is okay. Whatever you have to choose for that purpose is fine. Come onto your belly, please. Pardon the noisiness of my chair. Come down to Sphinx pose, which is like being that Sphinx sculpture in the art history books. So both arms can lay forward, palms face down. This is also called the slumber party pose. I want this to be comfortable for you. So for anybody for whom this is too much back bend right now, you walk the elbows forward, making the back bend a little bit less. Okay, point your toes behind you, press down with the tops of both feet. Energize your leg muscles and see if you can find the upper inner thighs. An option is to kind of isometrically press your feet towards each other. And then lengthen the tailbone down again, as if the inner thighs and the tailbone are passing each other. Press into your elbows, raise your torso and your heart. Set the shoulders back, widen your collarbones. And now as you inhale, stay where you are in Sphinx pose. As you exhale, press your palms down, straighten the elbows, and raise up. And then inhale to go back down. Remember that the inhale is going to start really slowly at the base of the pelvis. And exhale, press down to go up. And inhale to lower down. And the next time you exhale to go up, we're going to stay. So press down with both palms against the floor. And then try raising your chin to open your throat. Please be thoughtful. You're not just sticking the chin forward and your neck matters. And this isn't like you're craning to see your computer screen. And then exhale, lower your elbows down. And come down to Makrasana. Fold your palms. Rest your head down on the back of your hands. And invite the back muscles to relax and for the belly to be just very natural. You don't have to coordinate it. Notice what your mind does when you have a chance to come to stillness. And then please come back to your Sphinx pose, setting it up to now be Cobra pose. And in Cobra pose, the hands will go back, like almost like when we were on the chair before, but not quite that far. When you place the hand back, you're going to roll the shoulder up and back. Remember we had the elbows bent and you were holding the back of the chair there for a moment? So same idea here with the shoulders, because I want us to focus on, can you have the inhale last long enough to come up into the heart in your Cobra pose? So please place both hands and glide up to your Cobra pose, the one that you can sustain. And see if you can find it in the breath pace. So you're really, it's your own exploration, has to be your own. That you can have the top of the inhale come up into the heart and the collarbones. Almost you might have a sense like you're pulling the torso forward and the legs are glued to your yoga mat. So you're giving a little traction in the torso. I'm gonna do that one more time. So you're gonna breathe in. Good, and then exhale, roll back down to your Makrasana pose, so the place where you were when you were having your head on the back of your hands, like that. And let the back of the body relax and become supple. So the back body is receiving the rhythm of the unsupervised breath. You're just letting the breath breathe you right now. Okay, now we're going to need 2 blocks. So you're going to take your time. You can stay down in Makrasana a few moments more. But what we're going to be addressing next is the neck and shoulders and the upper back. And this process with the 2 blocks, I think we have done this quite recently actually. So 2 blocks, you can now come up from your Makrasana and please get 2 blocks. So one is going to be medium, one is going to be flat. And when you do this, you want to have a sense that the shoulder blades are going to be totally supported. So your shoulder blades, they're all slightly different sizes because we're different sizes, but the shoulder blades are going to be on the block like this. So the bottom corner of the shoulder blade is at the edge of the block when you lie on this. And that means that how far forward you need to be on your mat so you don't run into your pets. I don't have any pets in here right now, as you guys know. They have to be in their kitty quarantine. But your pets on your yoga mat, they don't want to be kicked about. So you have 1 block for the shoulder blades, 1 block for the head. So turn about and lie on your back, please. And place your shoulder blades on the first block and your head on the second block. And this is a little bit like getting ready for a pose that we call fish pose. You're going to see this sequence progress. And fish pose is one of the classical yoga poses. By the way, triangle pose is not. So you have your 2 shoulder blades set, you have your head set. Take your arms overhead, please. These are like your downward dog pose arms, also your handstand arms and other things, putting stuff up high arms. Since your head is higher than your heart right now, it's possible that you could feel like a little bit of ease in the throat. But I'm going to ask you to inhale up to a momentary suspension. Make it brief because we're really interested in how you're going to exhale now and feel the lower abdomen, mid-abdomen, upper abdomen, the chest. And how does a fully toned exhale become your inhalation? At the end of one of your exhale breaths, and I'd like you to put the block down under your head to be flat setting. And try the same thing. So you've just changed the dynamic between your heart, your collarbones, and your throat. And let's do the inhalation from the lower belly to the mid belly, upper belly, up to the chest and the heart. A brief suspension like the length you suspend during a yawn. And then exhale, toning the exhale to its completion and really being thoughtful as to how you next inhale. And then as you're ready to consider it, you can put the block under your head, put it aside so that you now are more like in fish pose. And try it one more time. Your second block is not necessary right now, but keep it within reach. So really noticing how the exhale becomes the inhale. You're just training these abdominal muscles for what these bandhas are. I'm going to ask you to put the block back under your head. You can do the medium setting. Take the arms out into a T shape and let your body relax there. And in letting that relaxation happen, notice the quality of your mind. Yeah, so notice what is happening inside. Good. And take your time just observing, like these little echoes may still be going on. What can you learn about your inner experience right now? Mm-hmm. Good, and then you can transition, either go sideways to come up from there, or you can go forward and up. Some of you do it that way, I know. And when you come up, I'm going to ask you to take the blocks, move them aside, lie on your back to put the two blocks under the back of your pelvis. Okay, so you come up, you move the blocks, and then please lie down with your knees bent. You're getting ready for bridge pose. So bridge pose and fish pose, these are important poses for your bandhas, and they kind of go together. Yeah. Good. So once you lie on your back and you've got the knees bent, this is where for some of you, You're going to want the blocks to be 2 blocks stacked on the flat setting, but others will put 1 block flat and 1 block medium. And some might have only 1 block on the tall setting. But please come to your supported bridge pose with your blocks. And then tuck the shoulders under the heart. Notice that your gaze is going to be down and in towards your heart. Now I'm going to recommend or request that you keep some tone in your leg muscles. So you're not like just resting there like a piece of cloth over a stone. Keep your heels grounded, energize the back of your pelvis. And observe when the outer structure of the pose, so that's like your limbs, when it's supportive enough, what's happening to the internal experience of the breath? We actually won't need the chair again today. I'm just saying that logistically for myself and for you guys to know. But if you think about when you were sitting on the chair, it was an external structure to support the structure of the body, to support the breath. Now you have your blocks and gravity, and you have your limbs to support the internal experience of the torso as a pathway in which the breath is happening. Now, for those of you who want to try it out, I'm going to recommend this is another place to practice when we tone the exhale really completely. And then without inhaling, you relax the belly muscles and there's an internal suction that comes. Let that suction be brief and don't become aggressive or assertive with it. And then you have to tone the muscles that you felt go into the suction. You've got to apply some tone before you inhale. Try that just about 3 times if you want to experiment with it. It's not required. The work you're doing in bridge pose or the myofascial process may be enough for you right now. Thank you for your concentration. At the end of your next exhale, whether you're using that suction or you're just watching the exhale become the inhale, at that time, I'd like you to lift your hips and take the 2 blocks and place them. So you're going to bring your hips down and go into bandhasana. So put the soles of your feet together, please, and 1 block under each knee. And this is where you're getting ready for shavasana, so you can cover up with a blanket. This sequence is really specific about the bandhas to come into the inner body and to sense these regions. So we're going to rest now before we have a bit of pranayama. We won't do bandhasana for your entire shavasana. So when you set up your blanket, be prepared for the moment when I'll say, let's take the legs straight out, please. Good. Okay, so come to rest and just watch the echo of what is happening. You can imagine that echo is not only in the physical body, also it's in the mind. And the echo is for me, it's like a delicious rippling effect. Allow yourself to rest there, to be cared for by the efforts you just put into your practice. Yeah, let the mind become quiet. The body have a sense of like the sweet heaviness, like a river resting in its riverbank. And you can take both legs out to be straight now for the shavasana that you'll stay in for the next several minutes, please. When you're resting in shavasana, you can think of like, oh, the effort was put in. The surrender is required, right? That we say abhyasa and vairagyam. So you have the effort, the dedication, and you allow the surrender. In fact, much like the river, the water found its way to the riverbed, and it surrenders to the riverbed. As you're resting, if your mind starts to wander off, I'm going to ask you to imagine that there's dozens of other people resting with you right now, and that there's a kind of collective strength in the surrender. So we can, each of us, come back to our most essential nature. And know that others are practicing that too. So invite your mind not to need to wander away by staying present with what's happening in the inner body. Allowing the mind to continually be welcomed to the inner experience. It does not need to wander away. And then building an inner refuge. Let yourself rest in there. how important it is that you have a place to come home to inside. Welcome your mind to be at home there, not to need to wander away. You may very lightly wiggle your fingers and your toes. And please bend your knees one at a time. And as you roll to your side, rest there for several moments. Or just a moment, Pat, let's see. Okay, maybe that's better. Okay. So roll to your side and rest there for a few moments, please. And then use both hands to rise back up to sitting and take a seat that you feel like your pelvis is really well supported. When you come up to this seat, this is your time for the pinnacle of your yoga practice now. So sitting upright, close your eyes. And we're going to practice gently inhale, maybe gently exhaling, but you're going to take that exhale tone to its deepest for you, and then releasing that tone, the beginning of the suction will happen inside. For those of you who want to add to that suction, you make a pretend inhalation without air coming in, and that whisks the inner belly into all three bandhas. So I'll talk through one cycle of mine, but you're going to practice at your own pace and do 2 or 3 times. So we begin with an inhale. And then we exhale. You don't squish the torso down while exhaling, but you do kind of tone the torso from the outer to the inner. At the end of the exhale, without inhaling, you release the exhale muscles, momentary suction. You can add a pretend inhale for the bigger suction. And then either way, you release the suction or the bandhas before you inhale. So I'm going to recommend that you try that. Each of you is going to make your own choices for how long the suction or how you just have passive suction or active suction. But try it about 3 times, please. And taking your time to try it. When you have done it 3 times, then let yourself sit quietly and beautifully. And you said make little to no effort. This is a time to feel the naturalness. Is called sahaj, the naturalness of meditation. The naturalness. Rest in the naturalness of reflectivity. The quiet, reflective, inner radiance. That radiance which I like to say is borrowing you to shine through. And join your hands together at your heart now. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. This practice today is based on the structure of the body and the structure of the bandhas. They do have structural locations, even though they're also part of the subtle body. My interest would be, how is the quality of the mind now? What are you noticing there?